This is definitely the most arrogant male lead I've ever seen. On the first day of school he provoked everyone in front of the whole school. Watching his arrogant attitude at the opening ceremony, everyone on stage was shocked. After the ceremony ended there were endless voices of mockery and insults towards him. This Academy Island, which was funded by the top-tier plutocrat the Shibunji family, had each student's rank evaluation determined by a star rating. Students can take each other's star grade by dueling. Meanwhile, the highest grade here is 7 stars. In this island, star rating represents everything. The main character is one of the few 7-star senior students here, but he is much more than that. And it's all thanks to an unexpected event a few hours ago. The male lead Do had just arrived at the school and was lost. However, it was because of this that he encountered the passing redhead. What he didn't expect was that he developed a strange sense of familiarity with the girl. However, this could only mean that the girl could be some sort of idol or model, as he had never seen her before. However, the more important thing right now was to ask the girl in front of him for directions. After learning that he had gone to the wrong campus, Do was instantly confused. Fortunately, the girl took out her cell phone and helped him point in the right direction. This is the cell phone that is uniformly provided to the trainees when they enter the school. Not only is it capable of sparring and checking the location, but it can also be used to obtain all kinds of information through specific functions. But this was also limited to viewing people who were ranked lower than himself. At the same time, the red hair is also very puzzled. Obviously, at the beginning of the school has been taught the use of cell phones. Adu, on the other hand, said that he is the kind of person who never reads tutorials when playing games. The redhead immediately laughed at this. Thinking that it was unlikely that the hero would be able to get out of this area on his own, she offered to show him the way. After the two of them arrived at campus 4, it was at this time that the bell of campus 3 rang. Then the redhead realized that she still had the commencement ceremony to attend. After saying a brief goodbye to Do, she turned to leave. However, if nothing else, an accident was about to happen now. A jet of water directly drenched her all over. This sudden turn of events also made the redhead suspect that everything that happened was designed in advance by Ado. After all, he didn't look surprised at all. Especially in this school, there won't be anyone who doesn't know the use of cell phones. This also made Redhead more sure of his suspicions. The male lead just wanted to argue, however this is not over. The red hair is even more directly let the male lead to apply for a duel. This is the first time I've ever seen a duel, and I've never seen one before. He was so surprised that he pressed the duel button by mistake, as it turns out that a duel can only be initiated by the one with the lower rank. Soon the red hair was subjected to the application. But it didn't matter. I didn't realize that the hero hadn't specified the content of the duel. Usually it's up to the applicant to decide, and that's to give the lower-ranked party an advantage. This also made the rear redhead mistakenly think that the male lead was using this to humiliate himself. However, the reason for this is very simple. He was just careless, and the message was sent out. But I didn't realize that this would just leave the redhead speechless. But because of this, she chose the content of her best duel. Only to see in the red hair touch the phone a moment in front of the eyes appeared a huge dueling platform. And the content of the duel was to see who would smile first, and their challenge was the enhanced version. Simply put, the one whose expression changes first loses. At the same time, the game is played in a turn-based system. After understanding the rules of the game, the hero intends to start the duel. But the next second the red hair cannot calm down. Unexpectedly, the male lead actually dared to fight against her without bringing skills. After all, in her perception, even if only one skill is set, it can still affect the battle situation to a great extent. So thinking about this, she assumed that the male lead was certain of victory. However, even though the redhead was good at self-rating, after all, the star level was there, and the skills she was using were all high star level skills. Not only did she shorten Do's turn time to 5.5 minutes, but she was also able to summon a blue lightsaber to attack him. Watching the number of onlookers grow, red hair then wanted to quickly resolve the battle. It was just as well that her clothes were almost dry and she could still make it to the opening ceremony. However, just then the accident happened again. This also made the redhead completely collapse. Originally she was about to speak at the commencement ceremony today as a student representative, but now her clothes actually got wet again. This also made her even more certain that the main character had tampered with the sprinklers in advance in order to make her embarrassed in front of the crowd. Then, thinking of this, she could no longer control her emotions. In an instant her expression changed radically. After the duel announcement rang out, Ado won and stripped red hair of one of his stars. However, this seemingly jokey duel was watched by a woman in the deep darkness. Time to go back to the present. After the opening ceremony, the hero returned to his dormitory. What he didn't expect was that his dormitory would be turned into a presidential suite, and he would be looking at a white-haired girl across the hall. The hero is confused by all this, but after talking to the girl he understands everything. Turns out it was the principal who planned all this. In order to protect the hero's secret, the principal arranges for Snow to become his personal maid. Snow's cooking is so good that the hero eats 2 bowls of rice even though his appetite is usually not so good. For the next 2.5 years, Snow and her team will be fully assisting the hero in his duels and daily life. The male lead only needs to move around as a 7-star rank. Sounds great, but the hero soon realizes the severity of the problem, as no one else is allowed to fight in the duel. However, Shiryuki calmly walks over to the male lead and tells him to open his cell phone and check the duel application. Unexpectedly, he has received 42 applications. Then Shiroyuki chooses an opponent, and prepares the male lead to show off the role of the auxiliary in tomorrow's first battle. Snow handed the male lead a headset, and on the screen Ms. Hep was in charge of the electronic equipment. She had the best computer skills in the academy. In the coming duel, Hep will be forced to hack into her opponent's terminal device, and the male lead can easily win by simply behaving naturally, and not arousing suspicion. The next day arrives and the hero wins the battle without incident. But not long after he is challenged again. This time his opponent is a young girl who loves motorcycles and is proud of her speed. Almost no one in the academy can beat her in speed. The competition is a race, and no matter what, the one who reaches the finish line first wins. After a long period of provocation, the race is about to begin. However, to everyone's surprise, the main character plans to win the race on his feet against his motorcycle riding rival. The main character is very nervous on the outside, but on the inside he is very nervous. Despite the fact that Snow has studied his opponent's skill weaknesses, the hero feels that there is no way he can win. As the race begins, the biker girl rushes to the finish line at a speed that the naked eye cannot keep up with, while the hero takes his first step with ease. However, at the moment when the girl is about to reach the finish line, the motorcycle suddenly stops running and the girl is ejected by inertia. Thankfully, the race is well protected, otherwise the girl could have been injured or even killed. The hero, on the other hand, is calm and relaxed while dashing towards the finish line. After the race, the male lead's reputation in the academy was raised by 1 level. After the race, Morekill finds the male lead and takes him to a hidden place. And Morekill reveals to the hero his 2.5-year-long secret. It turns out that a year ago the real Morekill was kidnapped. The kidnapper did not make any demands, causing the group to fail to find her so far. In order to protect the identity of Morekill, she hopes to get the male lead's help. In other words, as long as the hero loses in the duel, the secret of the two of them will be revealed. The hero came to this island to find his childhood friend. Before he finds the other side, the hero must not be found out by others that he is Irigan. Because if he loses the duel, he will be expelled from school and kicked off the island. Therefore, Morekill and Do have reached a united front. They also added each other's contact information in order to facilitate future contact. However, the next day a man in black wearing Conan's same special effects glasses comes to trouble them both. After receiving a challenge from the man in glasses, Morekill and the hero decide to have a crucial combat meeting, as they are well aware that the man in glasses is not to be underestimated. He is not only a prestigious 5-star holder in the academy, but also possesses many mysterious skills. When Morekill enters the presidential suite of the male lead, he unexpectedly realizes that there is a maid waiting there. Even more surprisingly, the two turned out to know each other. It turns out that the maid named Shiroyuki used to be one of the maids of the Koenji family, and that she was one of the few people who knew Morekill's secret. After a short exchange of words, they begin to formulate a battle plan against Glasses Man. According to Shiroyuki, the battle game initiated by Glasses Man is called I Stay 27. The game is simply a game of collecting cards and comparing their sizes. Two sides need to collect cards with numbers from 0 to 19 in an area. At the end of the collection time, both players need to choose 5 cards to compare the size of the cards. If you win 3 out of 5 games, you win. Snow tells Du that there hasn't been any 1-star person that has the potential to beat a 5-star person because 1-star value management is useless. That 5-star person with value management can turn a 17-point deck into a 30-point deck, which can be said to be a sure win for 1 round. However, as long as you collect more cards in the collection phase, you still have some chance of winning. Next day finally arrives, and the duel begins as promised. As the hero has triggered his luck skill, the cards in his neighborhood are all relatively large. However, at that moment something unexpected is about to happen. Soon as the hero got the first card on the card terminal, it disappeared at a speed that could be seen by the naked eye. It was obvious that the Glasses Man's goal was to take all the cards for himself. After realizing that he has absolutely no cards to compete with, the hero immediately realizes that the situation is not good and begins to act quickly. However, the situation that made the hero feel desperate was far beyond his expectations. The elaborate battle plan that Shiroyuki had formulated earlier was almost entirely ineffective. Assistance resources placed in the field were also intercepted one by the Glasses Man's interference. The male lead did not choose to give up. While he had the 14th card in his pocket, even if he rushed to the location of the 17th card, he was afraid that someone else would grab a piece of it first. Just when he feels helpless, suddenly the biker girl he had raced with before appears and is willing to take him to the location of card 17. Once on the biker girl's motorcycle, the hero's speed accelerates, rapidly exceeding his previous speed by more than 5 times. Hero is confused as to why the biker girl is helping him. Conversation, he learns that it was all arranged by the principal. With the help of the biker girl, the hero quickly arrives at the location of the 17th deck, but the situation doesn't seem good. No matter how hard the hero tries, he is always a little bit short of the target. However, after changing positions and trying desperately, he finally collects the deck with great difficulty, and stands confidently above it only to fall from it, as he loses his balance. The other side of the tournament field, the man with the glasses is about to get all his cards. The hero wakes up, he realizes that his headset is missing and his head is bleeding from the impact. Head rushes over and tells the hero to go to the hospital. That moment Snowy also rushed over because she couldn't reach the hero. Main man also suddenly thought of a brilliant solution. Main character only has 2 cards, and even if they both win, he'll still be able to win the game. Even if they both win, he can only win 2 rounds, so he's not even qualified to win. Eyeglasses man then told the hero to admit defeat quickly. At this point the hero suddenly discarded all of his cards. Eyeglasses man told the man to admit defeat when he saw that he didn't have a single card left. However, he told him to read the rules carefully. Turns out that the hero is waiting for a computer expert from Snow White's team to break into Glasses man's terminal and change the text on the device that shows how to win to. Whoever discards all their cards first wins. However, this is only a change in the text. The game is still played on points. The man with the glasses fell for it, thinking that the hero had used a rule-changing technique, so he just discarded all of his cards at once. Aim didn't end there, but it went straight to the point. It caused the glasses man to panic instantly, as he had already folded all of his cards. Just when he thought he had no cards to compete with, the clever man suddenly pulled out a 17-point card. Turns out that he had secretly hidden a card before he discarded it. Man is also the one who won the game. Main character has been in the hospital for a long time, and he is now recovering. The red-haired Rinai came to visit him. Rinai said that she was very grateful to the hero for successfully guarding each other's lives, and the relationship between the two of them has been further developed since then. On the other hand, as soon as the match was over, the dean called the maid Shirayuki to her office. Dean told Bai Shui that the male lead's rank was now 2 stars because he had captured the blue star in the hands of his opponent, the man with glasses, in the last match. Because of the special rules for the male lead, he can't get normal stars. However, there is a special exception where he can acquire multiple colored stars. Repeating this process over and over again, he can eventually get the full color 7 stars. No said, "Aren't you just using him?" Dean says that the male lead noticed this a long time ago. Needs the male lead to collect the 7 colored stars, and the male lead can therefore stay at the school and look for his childhood friend. They are using each other, and their interests are aligned. Next day, Shirayuki's identity as a maid is transferred by the dean to the school where the male lead is from, because her identity was revealed in the last match with the glasses guy. Be an all-volunteer tryout soon. This competition, everyone must use a special command called maneuver. Simply put, as long as both sides are at a certain distance from each other, if one side sends out a request for a maneuver, the other side can't refuse. If the maneuver has been agreed upon, it will be impossible to receive an invitation to maneuver from anyone else for 24 hours. The maneuver will not deduct the current star rating of both sides. The loser will be eliminated. Top 5 ranked people will be chosen to compete in the rivalry match. To noon, just as the hero and the maid were eating, suddenly a golden hair appeared. Before the words could be spoken, she directly stuck to the male lead's side, her chest rubbing violently against the male lead's arm. The male lead froze in his tracks. First thing that you need to do is to get a good deal of money, and then you have to pay for it, and then you have to pay for it. The male lead came back to his senses and hurriedly asked Golden Hair to find himself what is the matter. Golden Hair said next to carry out the selection contest, someone made a questionnaire who most want to practice with the 7 stars of the male lead is naturally on the list, so the next will be a lot of people to find the male lead. Saying all this, Golden Hair left. After that, the dean called the male lead to her office. Said to the male lead that the green star, which was originally used as a prize for sparring in this audition, had been stolen, so she wanted the male lead to go and retrieve it. 3 goals in total for this mission: first, find out the identity of the person who stole it; second, retrieve the green star; and third, make sure that he wins the audition. Same time, she tells the hero that the green star has the ability to sense, telling him to be careful at all times. Next day, the audition begins. Oh helps the hero run back and forth across the campus, keeping them at a distance to prevent triggering the maneuvers. Returning to the male lead's presidential suite, Hep was called over again to make sure the male lead could get help. Stated that he could overlap the coordinates of the male lead's and Snow's terminal devices so that when someone challenged the male lead, the maid would meet the male lead instead. Next day, their plan is successfully implemented. The male lead encounters Golden Hair while escaping, causing the two to collide. In order to prevent the escape, Golden Hair obediently pins the hero directly with his legs and also says that the hero has been holding on to himself tightly. At this point, Snowy arrives and they take an emergency plan. Snow initiated a drill challenge to the male lead and successfully dodged a bullet. Returning to the dorm, Snowy realizes that they are out of their favorite sauce. The maid decides to go out and buy it. For a long time passes, the hero senses that something is wrong. At the moment, a phone call suddenly comes in. Turns out that Golden Hair has captured Snowy and is threatening the main character for tomorrow's maneuver. Without Snowy, the hero has lost his means of cheating. The drunken Hep seems to treat this place as his own home. The hero Hep is the very thing that saves his life. The game is called Unequal Triangles and is a card game. 2 sides each hold 10 cards to compare sizes, and the winner gets the cards played. Same cards are played, they stay on the field until one player takes all the cards. Order is determined by who has the most cards. Ordering is fixed, and there are 2 types of ordering: A and B. According to the card restraints, civilians are restrained by almost all cards, but each civilian will have their own special skills. All A group is better than B group. As long as you can get group A, you're already a big step ahead of the other side. Then the hero received a message from Snowy. The skill that Snowy will be carrying tomorrow, first grabbing the group cards with probability variation and then utilizing forced maneuvers to control the male lead for the first 3 turns. In other words, after 3 turns the male lead is just already bound to lose. The lead immediately asked Hep to be able to utilize computer technology to enhance the effect of his skills. He had been discussing this for the whole night. The lead was just about to go to sleep when he suddenly saw Rina come in. I, who was known as the empress of the entire school, was sleeping right next to him. At both of them not sleeping, Rina gave him a skill card, which is an informal and strong skill for the male lead to use as a talisman. Stayed the drill challenge between the male lead and Bai Shui unfolds as promised. Discussed yesterday, Shiroyuki opens the game directly with a probability change, allowing himself to get a deck of cards and then launching a forced maneuver. Like yesterday's discussion, Shiroyuki didn't play out the strong cards in the hero's hand. Couldn't help but catch the male lead's attention. Immediately associated it with the fact that yesterday Bai Shui had been emphasizing on the phone, telling the male lead to never think about winning. The male lead understood. The corners of Bai Shui's mouth rise. The male lead also confirmed the suspicion in his heart. Male lead has to do is just quietly cooperate with her to finish the scene. This turn the man has only 1 civilian card left, while Snow still has the assassin and the queen. Snow plays the assassin card, then the hero will not be able to activate the civilian skills. Snow is betting that Snow will play the queen card. His bet is that Snow will play the queen card and the civilian skill will be activated, giving half of Snow's winning cards to the man. Both sides have 10 cards each. That's how the match was tied, thanks to the maneuvering of Snow and the male lead. The match, Snowy explains that the reason why they became enemies is because her terminal was tampered with by Golden Hair. Not only has her information stolen, but she can even be listened to. Hair didn't expect Snow to win in the first place. Instead, she preferred the hero to win because the eavesdropping program would be transferred to the next winner's controlled terminal. Golden Hair changed her cute expression from before, telling that she is obviously a 6-star, the existence of all the people in the limelight. As the hero came to the school, she suddenly became like an ordinary person. Talking, she almost even gave up the mastermind behind the scene, which made the hero multiply his questions. Golden Hair, who had no way to retreat, came up with a big trick, saying that she had actually set up a self-destruct skill in the Snow control terminal. Word, she can now make Snow's information disappear from the school at any time. Blackmailed the hero into accepting her challenge. Lead has no choice but to accept Golden Hair's dueling challenge, a treasure hunt on a disc. The way to win is to find the opponent's hidden treasure, which is the companion of each of the 2 players. Character's companion is Rin-Nai, while the Golden Hair's companion is Shiroyuki. It is a 48 classroom building within the academy, with each of the 2 floors denoted by the letters A through, and the game is turn-based. Turn's instructions consist of 4 questions that ask the opponent about the location of his or her companion. Asking a question, the opponent cannot lie in their answer. Is to move up to 3 positions per turn. Are to point out to your opponent the location of your partner's hideout. Player has a total of 3 answers. Guess incorrectly, you lose 1 answer, but you must be in the hiding place you pointed out to your opponent. Answer is correct, the game is won. The opponent can also use the 4th command, evade, to make their partner change location. The use of the evade command also consumes an answer right. The who uses up all 3 of his or her answer rights is declared the loser. Part of the game, Golden Hair uses the bug skill to act twice. 1 turn is equivalent to 2 turns, which means she can question the hero twice per turn or move 6 squares. 2 rounds of questioning, she locks on to the location of the main character's companion Rina, who is located on the 4th floor. Arriving at the main character's turn, the main character learns through questioning that Snowy's location is below the 3rd floor, and then he moves 3 squares. Golden Hair's turn, and she questions the hero if Rina is in the east classroom on the 4th floor. Because she had the skill to act twice, she locked on to the fact that Rina was in the 2 classrooms on the west side of the 4th floor. Hero's turn, and that's when Hep brings the bad news. Golden Hair carried the defense boundary skill. It covered the entire school building, making it impossible for her to lock on to Shiroyuki's location. The control terminal was too powerful. A person was needed to rewrite the program. The hero immediately thought of Rina. Time is losing a little bit, and finally the smart Rin-Nai together with Hep figured out Snow's location. The round was about to end. The hero launched a question. Golden Hair, if Snow was in this classroom. Hair was shocked when she saw the questioning, and since she couldn't lie, she had to choose yes. The hero moved 3 squares directly to the vicinity of the classroom where Shiroyuki was. And as he waits until the next turn, he can move to Snow's classroom to initiate an answer and win. And Hair had already made a preparatory plan. She just expends her right to answer once and uses evasion to move Shiroyuki to another classroom. In time, she launched Rina's exact location in the 2nd classroom on the west side of the 4th floor and moved 6 directly to the vicinity of Rina's classroom. The turn ended. With other choice, the hero also expends an answer and uses evasion to send Rina to another classroom. At point, Shiroyuki also walks out of the classroom next to the male lead and heads to the classroom designated by Golden Hair. The lead said to Shiroyuki with concern that it would be cold by 10:00, so keep warm. Wished he glanced at the time, which was just about 8 o'clock. The lead continued to question Jean Mao if Bai Shue's position was in these 3 positions on the 5th and 6th floors. Then it was Golden Hair's turn to freeze. She asked how the male lead could know. She had obviously stopped the outside world from interfering. It felt that Rinai based on the position of the 2 sides to judge the male lead in the 2nd floor. They are in the 4th floor. If they move to the 3rd floor or the 1st floor, they will certainly be able to hear the footsteps. So below the 4th floor are ruled out, and the only ones left are the 12 classrooms on the 5th and 6th floors. Male lead can only move 3 squares per turn. He can presume that Golden Hair will choose a location that is a multiple of 3 plus 1 square away from the male lead. In the music classroom that was closest to the male lead, these 3 classrooms were the only ones left. It said that Rinai's wave of reasoning directly saw through all of Golden Hair's schemes. Her carefully designed hiding place was discovered by the male lead. The 2 ponytails decisively said to the male lead that next she would randomly pick Snow's hiding place. That was to make it impossible for the male lead to predict herself anymore. This her action skill twice to issue a question directly locking on to Rina's location on the 2nd floor and had moved to the west side of the 2nd floor. The 2 rounds the male lead locks onto the east side of the classroom on the 6th floor after continuously eliminating classrooms through questioning. At the time he also had to consume the right to answer and use evasion, allowing Rina to travel to the teacher's office on the 1st floor. At both sides only have 1 answer left. It's both sides were running out of means to get their partner to evade. Then the male lead suddenly told the 2 ponytails that he already knew where Shiroyuki was. Well, after 10 o'clock the hero directly locks Snow in the east classroom of the 5th floor and is within 3 frames of himself. They came to Snow's classroom and used the answer to find Snow. While he had won, he suddenly heard Golden Hair laughing. The hair has one more skill that he hasn't used yet, and that's Fate Change. The male lead's answer just now directly null and void. And Hair has already used the action twice, coming to the faculty office where Rinai is and launching the answer to find Rinai. Ri saw Golden Hair and immediately said, "I didn't think you'd use such a despicable means to win the game." Just Golden Hair is still proud of his victory over the main character, the main character does a complete reversal. He skill card, replacement substitute, to change the player from the male lead to the white Snow. And as we look at the whole game, the main character never wanted to win from the beginning. Because that Golden Hair has a lot of informal skills, she must have a way to reverse the situation. So has only one goal from the beginning, and that is to find Snowy. Once with Shiroyuki in the middle of the game, he tells her that it might be cold at 10:00, which is a hint to her to turn on the air conditioner of the classroom she is in at 10:00. The Rinai, who is in the faculty office, will see the classroom where Shiroyuki is. So succeeds in finding Shiroyuki. Then activated the skill card that Rinai gave him yesterday, and changed the goal of the game. Before the game, Snow told the hero why she became his opponent. It thought that the eavesdropping program planted inside Snow's control terminal will be transferred to the next winner's control terminal after the match is over. On the surface, Golden Hair is in control of the whole situation, but in fact the hero skillfully exploits this situation. At the time, the male protagonist keeps circling around with Golden Hair, stimulating her desire to compete in the match. He Golden Hair win the game, at which point he uses his skill to turn Snowy into a player. This eavesdropping program is transferred to Golden Hair's own control terminal. The important thing is that even if the hero loses, he can still participate in the audition as usual. All of this was calculated by the male lead long ago, and the only loser in the normal game would be Golden Hair. Well, end of today's video. Thanks for support and watching. Well, see you in the next installment.